are you freaking out? Or I'm sorry, are you confident in starting Jeff Wilson Jr. this week? That and so much more on tonight's episode of the Mailbag Show. Let's get a little ahead of our questions there. But are you confident starting Jeff Wilson Jr.? Victoria, start us off here.
Oh, this is a tough question. Here on the Mailbag Show, I have been a proponent of not exactly trusting that 49ers backfield. I don't have any shares of Elijah Mitchell in redraft. I think I may have only had one or two last year in redraft, but yes, I put some claims in for Jeff Wilson this week. I think they project Elijah Mitchell, this injury, to be out almost 8 weeks, I think. Could Jeff Wilson get hurt like he did last year? Sure. Could he be just a mediocre running back 3, flex value, because we know Trey Lance is running that ball finally this year? We've got Debo in the backfield. Of course, yes, that could happen. But you're getting a flex or a low-end RB2 for free on waivers or a low bid in Fab. So why not? Am I confident in starting him? I say, why not? If you want to wait a week and see what happens, that's fine. But then what if Jeff Wilson gets hurt? You didn't get to use it. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna put that juju out there. But yeah, if I'm hurting at running back, I'm throwing him right in there. I think I'm not too scared. I think that last year, like someone like me, I waited a little bit too long for your chance. If you weren't in on somebody like Elijah Mitchell last year, he brought some great value to your squad if you put a waiver bid on him. Shanahan is Shanahanigans. He could rotate the hot hand, but if Wilson is healthy, I think he's the best bet for the starting running back on this team. You could pick up a lower value TDP, Tyron Davis-Price. That's fine. Put him on your bench, but you might be having your bench clogged there for a couple weeks if Wilson ends up being that starter, which is what we all expect. So to answer that question in a roundabout way, yes, I'm fine starting Jeff Wilson if you're hurting that running back this week in your lineup.
And Tyrion Davis-Price, that was the guy that we were thinking it was going to be the backup all offseason. And then we start getting reports that Jeff Wilson Jr. beat him out. And then all of a sudden, Jordan Price is inactive week one. Or I'm sorry, Tyrion Davis-Price is inactive week one. And now we're getting reports that Jordan Mason is probably going to be the next guy up. And there's some people thinking that Jordan Mason might have beaten out Jeff Wilson Jr. for the job. So I'm completely with you, Victoria. There is concern and a lot of uncertainty with this backfield, and that's kind of why I avoided it myself this offseason. And we haven't even talked about Deebo Samuel, who's going to get his on the ground as well. So, Troy, same question to you. If you, I mean, I got to assume if you bid 40, 50% of your fab on Jeff Wilson, you're starting him, but are you confident in doing it?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this. So about the people get comfortable. So Jeff Wilson, let's look at the landscape of what happened, last game. So Elijah Mitchell, he got hurt, and then, Jeff Wilson took the RB1 role, and then he pretty much evenly split carries with Deebo Samuel. I believe Deebo had like 8 rushes, Jeff Wilson had 9, Jordan Mason had 0, and Jordan Mason played special teams. Now, TDP, the thing about him is that he was inactive because he doesn't play special teams. So that's one of the reasons they only have 3 backs. So let's look at this new scenario. So we have Jeff Wilson, we have, Tyrion Davis-Price, and then you have Jordan Mason. Somebody has to play special teams, right? If it's not going to be TDP, it's not going to be Jeff Wilson, then I believe it's got to be Jordan Mason, unless you're signing someone, unless you're bringing, I know they just signed Marlon Mack. Are you bringing him off the practice squad? I don't know if he's going to play special teams. Are you going to, sit, TDP another week? There's a lot of convoluted, lewdness that's going on with the backfield, but I believe that Jeff Wilson, we've seen him in this offense. And he seems to be the guy. So to me, he's the RB1. I think it depends on your confidence. I'm going to ask you guys a question because I'm very curious. I posed this question, in the group chat. Do you guys have more confidence this week in Jeff Wilson Jr., or do you have more confidence in Zeke Elliott now that Dak is hurt? Who do you have more confidence in? Jeff Wilson gets Seattle, and Zeke gets Cincinnati. So if you guys, who do you think scores more fantasy points this week between the two?
Zeke. I'm getting a little too cute with it, putting Jeff Wilson over Zeke, in my opinion. I mean, you can make an argument for the ceiling with Jeff Wilson because of the matchup that they've got, but at the end of the day, Zeke is Zeke. He didn't really come off the field. He was still getting all the touches against Dallas, and now with
he only had 9 rushing attempts. He only had 9 rushing attempts. He looked good.
He looked so good. They shouldn't have taken him off the field. It's watching Dak struggle, and then obviously Cooper Rush struggling. I don't understand why they took him off the field.
But what are they going to do? They're going to have Cooper Rush throw the ball 50 times? No, I think that they're going to have to keep the ball on the ground, or at least do their best to keep the ball on the ground. So I think that Zeke's going to get fed. I just saw an interesting stat today. I think I sent it to you guys. that Ezekiel Elliott, his cap hit this year is higher than any running back room combined on any other team. I mean, it's absurd. And he still has years left on that deal. So I got to assume that they're going to get their money
Terrible
out of it,
deal.
hopefully.
And that's
But-
like, yeah, but then I digress. They should have used him more. But I think there's going to be people, like you said, you spent money on Jeff Wilson. You spent like 40, 50%. A lot of people did. And he played Seattle, who gave up a lot of production, to the Broncos. A lot of it was in the passing game. But look, the Broncos pretty much ran all over him, caught the ball out of the backfield. So you're looking at that situation. Then you're looking at the Cowboys. So it's like, they struggled. They did not look good. Zeke looked good, but overall as a team, they struggled. You lose Dak. So these are decisions that a lot of our fantasy managers are going to have to figure out. Because if you're in a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, sometimes you have to make some tough decisions. Like, where are you going to fit? And, Jeff Wilson, unless you're the, Elijah Mitchell, fantasy manager, some people might have just picked him up to block that guy or just have running back depth. You have to find a way to slot him in. So if you're putting Jeff Wilson Jr. in, who are you taking out? And these are some of the guys that, we have to talk about, so that's the reason why I brought it up. In terms of confidence, I think I'm playing them, but it depends on what your options are. Vic, I think you want to say something.
Yeah, and I think if you're in a 10-team, 1 flex league, you probably just can't fit Jeff Wilson Jr. into your lineup. And that's a really good point. We're sitting here talking about Jeff Wilson Jr., but at the end of the day, it's probably only in deeper dynasty leagues where he's already stashed that you're even thinking about playing him at this point. But Vic, I see you have something to say. What's up?
No, I just was thinking if we're saying this or that, Breece Hall or Jeff Wilson this week.
Going Jeff Wilson there, I think. I
Yeah,
mean,
Jeff
Breece Hall
Wilson.
had some nice usage through the air that's a little bit promising. He drew a high target share, but yeah, I mean, it still looks like Michael Carter really is the lead back there, which I mean, it's so tough too. I mean, we could do this whole show over like not overreacting, and it's tough because we don't get any football for 7 months, and we just analyze every situation and try to break things apart and predict as much as we can. And then week 1 hits, and James Robinson is 100% healthy. Cam Akers gets 3 touches. Michael Carter is out touching Breece Hall. I mean, like all the things that we thought were going to happen ended up not coming to fruition. And that's just kind of a part of the game where you want to take that and apply it to your next week's rankings and how you're setting your lineups. But you also don't want to completely overreact. You're not going to bench CeeDee Lamb, and you're not, probably not plugging Donovan Peoples-Jones in your lineup right now. Some people are, and we got a question about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, there's a lot to overreact about. The one thing I'll say about Jeff Wilson Jr. is if you look at his whole career, he's had 8 starts where he got the start and finished the game. He had 9 total starts, but one of them he was knocked out in the first quarter with a shoulder injury. And his numbers are pretty good during those games. 18.6 carries. I mean, that's just absurd. 18.6 carries, 90.3 rushing yards. Gets involved a little bit in the receiving game, 2.5 targets per game, but he averages a touchdown per game. And all that comes out to 17.6 fantasy points per game, which is pretty nice. And he's done it 4 times now with Debo in his role as a rusher. And I think that's kind of what can cap him the most, because Jeff Wilson Jr. doesn't have that big size. So I don't know if he's going to be getting goal line touches. And I think that those go Debo's way. And when you look at the 4-game split with Debo in there as a rusher, 16.8 carries. So you see that dip a little bit. 66.3 yards. You see that dip a little bit. But really the biggest knock is that he was only scoring 2 touchdowns in 4 games. So there's a lot of risk there. And really, we're kind of filling in the lines with context in between a very small sample size. But you can make a strong argument either way, that either this guy's going to see 20 carries, 100 yards, a touchdown, and have a huge game, or it could end up being a committee with Debo getting involved and Jordan Davis or Tyrion Davis-Price at the goal line. What's up, Troy?
So I have one more starter sit, right? I think this is a good one. Are you starting Jeff Wilson Jr. or Chase Edmonds?
Chase
against
Edmonds.
Baltimore.
I'm going Jeff Wilson Jr. here.
Wow.
I feel like it's either. Again, these are going to be decisions that our listeners are going to have to be making, and I feel like that's a good comparison right there.
What about Travis Etienne? Travis Etienne or Jeff Wilson Jr.?
I think Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff for me there.
And then it's crazy
James
to say.
Robinson, guys, what?
I know.
We won't talk about him later.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him later. I think the huge thing with James Robinson is like, the first game of the season, Thursday Night Football, everybody is tuned in to Bills and Rams, and we see Cam Akers just being terrible. And really, I think it's just because he's not a very good football player, but a lot of people chalk that up to the Achilles. So then we look and say, well, surely James Robinson is going to be just as bad. And then James Robinson comes out, after getting injured after Cam Akers. Like, he had less time to recover than Cam Akers did, and he looked fantastic. So, yeah, it's a lot that you can read into there. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Mailbag Show. Drop us a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube right now and help pull some other viewers in here. I am Dave Kluge. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. I'm here with Victoria and Troy. Victoria, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
At FFB_Victoria on Twitter and Instagram. Send me those DM start sits. Ask them in the comments here. I am so happy. It's week 2.
And keep asking those questions. We are starring them as they come in, and we'll get to those after we hit our pre-submitted questions. You can send those questions to mailbag@footballguys.com. You can also send them to us on Twitter. You can find us on Discord, where we've got a channel there where you can drop your questions as well. Before we get into the next question, though, Troy, let everyone know where they can find you as well.
You guys can find me at T-King Mode pretty much on all social media platforms, but Twitter's my home base.
Easy enough. So be sure to follow both of these guys and follow us at Football Guys as well. And if you have not already, subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys so you can see this show, all of our other full-length shows, our short videos, and everything else. Let's dive in with the next question from Trobdady saying, who should I bench or who should I drop on my bench? Kadarius, Toney, or Chris Olave? Troy, start us off here.
For me, it's I guess easy, but I feel weird saying that it's easy. I'm dropping Chris Olave because after what we saw, right? We see Michael Thomas was very involved, and we saw Jarvis Landry was very involved in this offense. And Kadarius Toney, he for some reason the Giants bizarrely didn't use him, and then when he's on the field, this man is electric. He's so electric, and I just feel he has so much upside. And I think that he's going to get more involved in the offense, and I think he has more of a clear path to touches in the Giants offense versus Chris Olave. I feel like he has unless God forbid, but unless Landry or Thomas gets hurt, I don't see a real consistent path for Chris Olave. So that's why I'm dropping him, and I'm going to keep Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Victoria, are you making a push to keep Chris Olave here, or are you keeping Toney as well?
Not in particular. I will say, oddly enough, I saw a lot of Toney drops already this week in my redraft leagues where I was like, whoa, and I put a little interested in flag on there, of course, right? I mean, the injury for Kadarius Toney leading into this season, I was just much less bullish on taking him in redraft where he was going. There are other guys I liked in that range, but I can't imagine, like you guys said, him not being involved going down the stretch. That's the big caveat. Is like if he's healthy, we said that last year. That's the key. Those are the key words, which stinks. But like Olave is going to take time to get acclimated to the system as a rookie. As you already said, Landry was popping off last week. He could just be lower in the pecking order all season. Interestingly enough, Troy, while you were talking, though, Chris Olave, 74% of snaps, highest of receivers on the team. Jarvis Landry at 72%, Michael Thomas at 61%. That was pretty interesting to see. Obviously, we know Toney didn't really play, but yeah, the usage, like having Richie James and David Sills, shout out West Virginia University.
James, wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
I picked him up in a lot of dynasty leagues just in case,
Yeah, it was definitely interesting, and we didn't really get any good just language from Coach Dayball in terms of like, why didn't you use Toney? It was like, well, we will use him in certain circumstances in the future. He'll be there. It's like it's just coach speak, but I'm with you guys. If I had to drop one, it's Olave.
Yeah, I'm dropping Olave as well. Kadarius Toney, he's a special player. I mean, that's his. I don't know any other way to say it. When this guy gets the ball in his hands, he is absolutely electric. Why he was kept to just 7 snaps in the entire game, I do not know. I don't know if he's in the doghouse or
he's in the doghouse.
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be. This is very reminiscent to Brandon Ayuk last year, where you've got an electric player that just isn't getting the snaps. And we saw what Brandon Ayuk did down the stretch. He was the wide receiver 16 in the back half of the 2021 season. So, Toney's got that same sort of upside when it comes to, how dynamic of a player he is. So I'm keeping Toney here. Chris Olave, still a lot of season left, but like you said, looking like he could be the wide receiver 3 on the Saints, which is and who knows? I mean, once Alvin Kamara starts getting involved in the passing game, he could be 4th on the team in targets. So things are looking a little rough for Chris Olave out the gate. Next question, though, comes from CJ Free 206. Thoughts on Devonta Smith? Devonta Smith had 4 targets, 0 catches. Very disappointing performance. And this is a guy that I think you guys were on the train with me, but I was beating the drum for Devonta Smith pretty hard this offseason. I've got a lot of shares of Devonta Smith, not feeling too great about it. Victoria, how are we feeling about him now?
Yeah, that was something, huh? there was one throw, I think it was a third and long, that Hurts hit Devonta Smith right in the back because he straight up didn't turn around. There's just miscommunication there between the two, it seemed, all game. And the good news is he played 96% of snaps, more than any other wide receiver on the team, including A.J. Brown. Obviously, I know people probably don't care. I had 0 in my lineup. I get it, but that's promising. Same amount of targets as Dallas Goedert with the 4 targets. But this is a day I think Hurts only attempted less than 30 passes. They were crushing the Lions on the ground. The running game was working. Miles Sanders, whoa, proved me wrong there. He looks pretty good. I'm not giving up on Devonta Smith. I just felt like a little bit of a fluky game, and who thought that the Lions and the Eagles were going to combine for over 70 points or 60 points, excuse me, not me. But if it happens a couple more weeks in a row, I'm going to start to get concerned.
More weeks. I can't wait a couple more weeks.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, if it happens again, if he only has, 4 or 5 points next week, then I don't know what to think. It would shock me, though. It would absolutely shock me. That's all I'm saying. Don't give up on him yet.
And like you said, I mean, the things that you can be excited about, he had more passing snaps and a higher route run percentage than anybody else, higher than A.J. Brown, higher than Dallas Goedert. I mean, there were hardly any other receivers that even saw anything outside of that. But, man, you look at PFF grades, which you don't want to read too deeply into, but he was graded at a 49.7, which is just abysmal in PFF grading. I mean, got no love from the PFF graders whatsoever. So he clearly had an off game. Troy, I mean, let's talk on a panic meter here. 0, you are calm as a Buddhist monk, and 0, you are running around with your hair on fire, your beard on fire. How are we feeling, 0 to 10?
I'll go with, I'll say 4. I'll say 4. Because it's very easy to overreact, and I feel, and people make jokes, right? It's like, obviously, snap percentage and routes run don't get you fantasy points. I get it, but I don't know if it's because Jeff Okudah, who was actually the primary, cover corner on him. So I don't know if he just had lockdown coverage or what. I don't know if it's a really tough matchup for him, but I don't expect him just to put up a donut, going forward. And I believe that, look, A.J. Brown is absolutely going to be the alpha. He's going to receive the highest target share every single week on the team. But I believe that Devonta Smith is going to find a way to get open and score fantasy points. And he's extremely talented. And he's not just some scrub. And I think that's another thing we have to remember, right? The Eagles took him in the first round last year. Like, there's a reason he's going to get involved in this offense. I think there's a lot of players that I think are just flukes. I think they just had weird week 1 performances, but I don't think it's going to be a trend. Now, if he struggles again this week, then I'm going to start to get a little bit worried. Let's say he's going to be riding my bench. Like, he got to prove himself. He's going to be riding the bench until further notice if he struggles again. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, he's a special player, not only a first-round pick, but also coming off a Heisman win, the first wide receiver to win the Heisman since 1991. So, I mean, he's a very, very special player. 900 yards, 100 targets as a rookie. I mean, he cleared every single metric you want to see. I don't think there's any chance, even with A.J. Brown there, even with Dallas Goedert there, even being on a run-first offense, he's not suddenly just going to faceplant and not be a good player. So, I mean, it was a bad game, but I'm not freaking out. If you're at a 4, Troy, I'm at a 2. I'm panicking even less than a 4. I'm not really all that concerned whatsoever. Next question comes in from our friend Jesse, J Moeller 05 on Twitter, and he says, with Keenan Allen out, are you comfortable starting Josh Palmer on Thursday? Now, Josh Palmer, he had Keenan Allen out for almost 3/4 of the game last week and still didn't do too much, but you got to think with a week of prep, him knowing that he's going to be the guy taking on that role, maybe feeling a little bit more comfortable. Victoria, how are you feeling about Joshua Palmer?
Yeah, I can see how you could be uneasy, feel a little bit uneasy seeing that stat line from this last game. I want to point out, too, how weird it was that all of Keenan Allen, DeAndre Carter, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, the tight ends, Everett, and Trey McKitty, every single one had 4 targets, I'm pretty sure. It's just the most evenly spread out offense I've ever seen in one game. So there's some little witchy stuff happening there, first of all. So if you look at this box score or your waivers and all that, you're like, oh, DeAndre Carter, who's this guy? This box score looks good. This is a guy to pick up, score a touchdown. he only played 37% of snaps. Josh Palmer played the second most amount of snaps behind Mike Williams at I think it was a 70-75% clip. And they're playing Kansas City. I don't know if you had a pulse on Sunday, but Patrick Mahomes threw about 67 touchdowns in the first half. He said, no Tyreek, no problem, honey baby sweetie. I am on fire. So the Chargers are going to have to keep up with this man, this insanity of an arm. I think I'd be comfortable tossing in Palmer as your wide receiver 3 if you've got 3 wide receiver slots, that kind of thing. We talked all offseason about that rapport that he had with Justin Herbert and that he could emerge as that top wide receiver 3. I'm still, again, the essence of this episode is not to overreact to your box scores or to the first week. I'm still in. I would play him with Keenan Allen out. They're really going to have to throw all game. And he's got a great opportunity in front of him there with Keenan out.
And I think you're going to hear us talking about this a lot in the show because we don't have a ton to go off of in week 1. The things you want to see are the usage. You want to see if these guys are getting on the field, and if they're getting on the field, are they running routes? And everything else is kind of secondary and tertiary after that. We want to know if guys are getting on the field. And, that's why we talk about Devonta Smith, who led the team in snaps, in receiving snaps. And then, like you said, Josh Palmer was second behind Mike Williams in receiving snaps. Another very promising thing is that every single time he was on the field for a receiving snap, or for a passing snap, he ran a route. He wasn't asked to block at all. So he was out there running routes the whole time. And yeah, on the surface, you look at the result, you look at the end of game finish, and it's very disappointing. But really what we're doing is chasing usage. If you're getting the usage, targets are going to come. And once the targets come, the catches are going to come. Once the catches come, the points and the yards and the touchdowns and everything else comes after that. So right now we're just looking for guys who are mainstays in their offense and will get more opportunities going forward. As much as you want to freak out about Devonta Smith and Josh Palmer and Mike Williams and Allen Robinson, these guys were on the field and the opportunity is going to come to them eventually. So Troy, how are you feeling about Josh Palmer? Are you kind of in the same boat where you're not, panicking too much? You're kind of okay rolling him out this week?
Well, first, let me read his stat line, right? It's almost like you're counting. So it's 1, 2, 3 receptions, 4 targets, 5 yards. So it's like, it doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. But, and like I said, and so let's look at the scenario. So they play Thursday night. The problem is if you have Josh Palmer, right? Let's say you picked him off waivers or you're staying in a redraft league. I'm guessing you most likely have at least 3 other receivers that are better than Josh Palmer on your team, right? Let's think of it. Depending on how you drafted, you probably have like 3 or even 4 better options than Josh Palmer. So, and on Thursday night, let's say you slot him in, right? If you're like in a deep dynasty league, have multiple flexes, things like that, and that's fine. But if you're in your standard league, or like say 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex, I guess you could flex him, but actually no, don't flex your Thursday night players. Forgot about that. So you could put him in your wide receiver slot, right? But if he lays an egg, that you don't have to sit with that, decision on, man, I just started a guy that put up 5 yards the week before. So it's just, I'm not very confident in it. Could he produce? I feel like this is his best opportunity to. So I say that if you're going for upside, he absolutely has the upside, right? Sometimes in fantasy, you got to risk it for the biscuits. So sometimes you can put him in there and hope for the best. It's just that you're going to have to do that knowing that, look, either he's going to dominate or he's going to give you a donut. So it's like, again, I don't know if I want to risk my fantasy week on Josh Palmer, y'all. It's Josh Palmer we're talking about. Again, I'm looking at my lineup and all my teams, especially my redraft teams. I have at least 4 or 5 guys better than Josh Palmer. Right? I'm just sorry. That's why I'm like, look, he can prove me wrong. I hope he does well. He could do well. If he doesn't do well this week, I'm telling you, I don't want absolutely nothing to do with him. If you can't do well with Keenan Allen out and you still struggle, then and in a supposedly high-scoring game, that's another thing. This game should be high-scoring. If Josh Palmer does absolutely nothing, then let's forget that he exists this year because this is like the perfect scenario. So I'll say that you could flex him, okay, but I'm not confident in it. That's what
you should play Gerald Everett though. I love his usage.
I love that call out. See, yeah. I'd play Gerald Everett. That's somebody that you can play everywhere. Yeah, that I like that call out for sure.
Yeah, somebody dropped Gerald Everett in my SFB league, and had to make sure. I was like, is this really happening? I mean, it was like right when waivers opened. So
Oh, wow.
I went, very much so zero tight end, just punted tight end down the board in SFB, and then just got gifted Gerald Everett. I mean, pretty happy about
Lucky.
that. Yeah, feeling good about that one. Well, let's go on to the next question here. And this one, I have CeeDee Lamb. This comes in from our Discord channel. I have CeeDee Lamb. Should I trade for Keenan Allen now that Dak is hurt? So what we're looking at here is, CeeDee Lamb's value dropping a little bit now with Dak Prescott hurt. Keenan Allen also hurt, so he's going to be missing some time. So I think this is just kind of are we selling low on CeeDee Lamb? And who wants to take this one first? Show of hands.
I'll take it, but I don't want to. So, because here's the thing, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer here, because let's break it down. So Dak is supposed to be out between 6 and 8 weeks, most likely, right? So that's 6 to 8 weeks with Cooper Rush. And Cooper Rush targets to CeeDee Lamb. And if you watched the last game, he wasn't really throwing that many catchable passes. So it's like you got CeeDee Lamb, who you believe is talented, right? So are you going to trust that Cooper Rush is going to be able to support CeeDee Lamb as a high-end wide receiver too? Or when I don't think the Keenan Allen injury is that serious, are you going to trust the number one target on a Justin Herbert-led offense? Now, it looks after week 1 that you're selling low, but in reality of things, it could benefit you, right? You could win some weeks with Keenan Allen because he's going to get targeted early and often. What I do know for CeeDee Lamb is that he's getting thrown to by a backup of a backup, let's be honest, but he just happens to be a backup. So when you break it down like that, I'd rather Keenan Allen in this particular scenario. Maybe that's not a popular opinion, but for fantasy, if both of them are healthy, so if Keenan Allen was playing this week and CeeDee Lamb was playing this week, I'd absolutely feel more comfortable playing Keenan Allen versus CeeDee Lamb. And look at last game. Dak was healthy all of last game. CeeDee Lamb did absolutely nothing. Maybe that was because it was week 1, but are we just confident that CeeDee Lamb's just going to outscore Keenan Allen? I don't think that's a guarantee. This isn't dynasty. This is redraft. So I think that for me, I don't think it's selling low. I think it's taking advantage of an opportunity. So that's the way I see it.
It's a spicy one, Troy. I don't know, man. I can't get behind selling low on CeeDee Lamb after one bad game. I get it.
We're talking about Keenan Allen. This isn't Josh Palmer. This is Keenan Allen we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about an oft-injured Keenan Allen who already got injured week 1 and is over the age of 30. I think that there's a lot to be concerned about with Keenan Allen.
Dynasty. I know, but this is still the wide receiver 1. Wasn't he the most targeted on this before he got injured? He had the most targets, right?
He exactly. Darn good. He did.
That's what I'm saying. I can't predict injuries. I'm assuming he's not going to be that injured. So if he's healthy on the field, who do you think is going to score more fantasy points? Keenan Allen getting targets from Justin Herbert or CeeDee Lamb getting targets from Cooper Rush? If you break it down like that.
I still think it's CeeDee Lamb.
No.
I still think it's CeeDee Lamb.
I like Zerat's point, saying you have to consider the re-injury rate with hamstrings. I'm not going to say that.
I can't predict that though. Right, I can't predict it.
No, that's true. And you can't label someone injury prone either. But he is older.
Bet on the talent, and CeeDee is such a talented guy, and we don't know. I mean, Dallas could trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, or they could call up Phillip Rivers and bring him off the street. I mean, it might not be Cooper Rush. I think that giving up on a player as talented as CeeDee Lamb after one bad week, I think that, and even with the quarterback concerns right now, I think that's just a little bit, I
don't think it's giving up though. His thing, I'm not giving up because how many tiers below CeeDee Lamb is Keenan Allen? I don't think it's like a huge difference in terms of fantasy points. Like fantasy points scored. Again, I'm not talking about some waiver wire dude giving up CeeDee Lamb for waiver wire dude. I'm talking about Keenan freaking Allen here. That's what I'm talking about. Again, I'm not saying, look, Kyle Phillips. Don't go for Kyle Phillips or Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, I'm not saying give him up for these guys. I'm talking about Keenan Allen, is he a tier below CeeDee Lamb talent-wise? Sure. Is he older than him? Sure. But I feel like it's not that big of a gap where I would consider it, your quote-unquote, selling low. I think that, look, you have the number one wide receiver on a very good offense. He's just old. That's the only reason we're not doing this trade, because he's old and he just happened to have a hamstring injury. If it was a serious hamstring injury, okay, like then I'd be more concerned. But from what I can tell, it's not something that's going to keep him out for multiple weeks. So that's the reason why I think I would be open to it.
I can't
think I'm
imagine
keeping him.
CeeDee Lamb's value going any lower than it is right now. Coming off the game that he had, people freaking out about the quarterback situation. I feel like this is just such a prime example of selling low. Like, why not wait? See what he does this week. If you're really that interested in getting CeeDee Lamb off your squad, wait until he gets 8 or 9 targets this week, and he might stumble into the end zone and then sell him. I feel like if you do it right now, coming off the game that he's coming off of, it's just you're really, really selling low.
I mean, I get this. Oh, sorry, Meg. I was going to say that I get the logic. Like, you don't necessarily have to do this trade right now, but I'm saying that if, let's say, CeeDee Lamb, I feel like if you only have 1 week window, right? Keenan Allen's missing. If CeeDee Lamb struggles again this week, then his values is going to dip even lower. So that's the problem. Is like instead of Keenan Allen, you starting to look past Keenan Allen. And then like if I'm a Keenan Allen and CeeDee Lamb struggles, I'm like, I don't want to give you Keenan Allen for that guy, So that's the way I'm thinking of it.
Vic, wrap us up on this conversation. We've been on this one for a while. How are you feeling here? And then we'll go to the chat.
CeeDee, 11 targets, albeit not wonderful targets last week, but I want to throw that whole game away. It was disgusting. I don't think Dallas is going to look quite that repulsive the entire season, especially with Cooper Rush. He's a capable dude. He was capable when Dak was hurt before. He'll do it again. I'm still going for CeeDee. Michael Gallup's still not 100%. CeeDee Lamb's going to keep getting all these targets week in and week out. If some of them are good, some are bad, that's okay. I still believe in him. Keeping him.
I'm with you. Now let's go rapid fire through this chat here because we got a ton of great questions in the chat.
Let's go.
And we have less than a half hour, and we've got over almost 20 questions in here. So let's keep it to about a minute and a half per question. First one we got, though, comes from John H. What do you guys think about J.K. Dobbins this week? He has a full practice today. He wants to play. Is he worth a shot this week if he goes? I also have Palmer and Boyd for the flex, but seems like a tough
decision.
That's a decision.
All right.
Decision.
Yeah,
Ooh,
so
I mean,
if J.K. Dobbins is healthy, I'm putting J.K. Dobbins in over Josh Palmer and Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, it'd be close for me with Boyd, I guess.
If Higgins doesn't play.
Keep an eye on Higgins. He's in concussion protocol. He seems to be progressing well through it, though. I think I'd throw Dobbins right in. I mean, you spent a lot of draft capital on him, and he's the best bet for touches. Baltimore's playing.
They're playing the Dolphins.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll say the Dolphins actually, even though the Patriots didn't do a good job running the ball, the Dolphins are able to be ran on. So I think if J.K. Dobbins is active, I'm skeptical because look, we've seen players come back from injury and get re-injured, but I think to me it would be between Boyd and Dobbins. If I'd play Boyd, if T. Higgins is out, I'm absolutely playing Boyd. If not, then I don't mind taking a shot at the upside of Dobbins.
I mean, it's kind of wild that Dobbins hasn't come back yet because he's young, and that's usually a pretty strong indicator for guys to come back early. I mean, it's been over a year since he suffered that injury. And he just talked about it. It was ACL, MCL, LCL. He said that he tore his hamstring. I mean, there was so much into it. But we see guys now, in their mid to late 20s tear their ACL, and they're back in the field 9 months later. It's been over a year now that we haven't seen J.K. Dobbins. So him being inactive week 1, started to push me into the panic side a little bit with J.K. Dobbins, but a full participant in practice, and if he's active, I think you got to fire him up with confidence because Kenyon Drake looked terrible, and
Mike Davis,
and he got knocked out early. So I mean, they need J.K. Dobbins back. So I think that if he plays, he'll get a solid workload. They're not going to put him out there if he's not 100%. Next question comes from YouTube as well. Do I trade Aaron Rodgers for Chris Godwin? Half PPR league.
Who's the other quarterback, Habibi? I'd say yes, regardless.
Yeah, because obviously we're assuming that this is single QB because in a super flex, that's a no-brainer. In a single QB, I feel like it's also a no-brainer the other way. So I think if it's a single QB, you smash accept on that. And if it's super flex, you're not even thinking about this.
Yeah. I think we all agree on that.
Next question comes from Brett Burton. Hitting that like button, everybody. Thank you for that, Brett. What do you think about Mike Williams' potential upside considering the Keenan Allen injury news? We've talked about the Chargers at length here. Does one of you want to take this? I mean, you got to get a little bit concerned about Mike Williams last week.
I
Yeah, but
mean, it's like Vic, you take it.
no, I was just gonna say you drafted Mike Williams knowing he is boom or bust always. So you drafted him, you're starting him. If he's healthy, you're putting him in there because he's gonna boom or he's gonna bust just like last week. That's just the kind of fantasy player he is. You're starting him, baby. He's got high upside in this shootout potential game. So put him in.
Oh yeah, I feel like if he's not at minimum a high-end wide receiver 2, I'm gonna be disappointed. But that's where he should be. He could be a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 with Keenan Allen out. Like that's what he should be. And again, maybe because he was bad last week, maybe we're due a good Mike Williams game. So yeah, he has a tremendous upside.
Yeah, if you spend a third or a fourth round draft pick on somebody, you don't want to bench him in week 2. It's too early to panic on that. So our next question comes: should I start Allen Robinson or Chase Edmonds? Like I said,
Ooh.
I don't think you should be
Chase.
panicking. Stop.
Ooh.
I'm going Allen Robinson here.
I'm not panicking on Allen Robinson. I just think Chase will have a great week because the Dolphins, I expect y'all to be trailing. I think Edmonds had wonderful usage already last week. We didn't see it in the fantasy points stat line. He had 10 and a half PPR points, which is promising, but his usage was great. He had more rushing attempts than his counterpart, Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, he had 12 rushes for 25 yards. It was terrible rushing efficiency.
Yeah.
But he had 4 receptions and 4 targets.
And he also saw more passing snaps than any other running back, which we've talked about quite a bit. I mean, he was on the field for 25 passing snaps. Raheem Mostert was second closest with just 14. So it looks like when they are going to the pass, that's the guy that they're going to lean on.
Yeah, I'm with you, David, not giving up on A-Rob yet, but Rams are playing Atlanta, right? So I'm assuming it could potentially be a blowout, and they might not need to be passing as much as I expect the Dolphins will. That's just where I'm going in that regard.
Yeah, it could also be a get-right game for Allen Robinson. I feel this is a tough one. I'm going with Robinson ever so slightly, and the differentiator for me, the decision, it comes down to it being full PPR, but you can go either way. If this was half PPR or standard, I think I'm leaning Edmonds, but in full PPR, I'm going to go with A-Rob. I mean, it can't get worse for A-Rob than what we saw last Thursday.
I agree. I feel this is a get-right game for him.
Next question comes from Ryan Hayes Yoga saying Carter and Landry for Elijah Moore and Ayuk, assuming this is Michael Carter that we're talking about here. I mean, I'm going the Elijah Moore and Ayuk side.
Smash that
easily.
Side. Yeah.
Easily.
Not even a
Elijah
question.
Moore and Ayuk, you got the three-way stamp of approval here. On to the next question from Big D. David. I think I'm going to start calling myself that. I like that.
Yes, do it. I already saw the question.
Sorry,
do
Joe.
it, please.
I'm thinking this is Pitts. Should I trade away George Kittle for Pitts?
Yeah,
please. Yes,
Pitts.
do it now.
Do it immediately.
He clarified here, Kyle Pitts. Yeah, easily Kyle Pitts.
Yes.
Well, I just want to point out real quickly, he was matched up against Marshawn Lattimore. And I think that Kyle Pitts, for as good as he is not the type of guy that's going to do well against Marshawn Lattimore. The guys that we see that are able to overcome Marshawn Lattimore are the really aggressive physical receivers, your DK Metcalfs, your DeAndre Hopkins, those guys that aren't afraid to push him back when he pushes you. A lot of times when you see these speedy guys, that's who gets shut down by Marshawn Lattimore. It gets in their head. He chips them off the line. They can never really get in a rhythm. And that's exactly what we saw last week with Kyle Pitts. So I'm not freaking out. He's still just 22 years old. He's still a baby, Kyle Pitts. He's still learning, but he's good. He's going to be just fine. I'm not freaking out about last week's game. Next question comes from Garrett H. Half PPR, Allen Robinson versus the Falcons or Donovan Peoples-Jones versus the Jets? I'll let you guys take this one.
I say the target share for Donovan Peoples-Jones had a ridiculous target share.
Yeah.
He had one of the highest, but
37%.
Exactly. It's just, are we going to expect it? If he continues to have that target, I think I'm going to go with A-Rob. I'm going to go with A-Rob, but very reluctantly. I'm going A-Rob.
Yeah, it just feels wrong to say start DJ.
Because are we expecting him to get a 30% or that high of a target share every single game? Like, where's Amari Cooper? Like, that should be him.
Coop will come back. I gotta go with A-Rob. Yeah,
Allen Robinson here pretty easily for me as well. Next question comes from Patrick Gira. David Montgomery or Jeff Wilson Jr. Let's get that second W. I have Mahomes, Diggs, and Adams. Congrats on a good team. I'm going David Montgomery, though. I mean, Khalil Herbert, we were, all offseason, we talked about kind of a 50-50 split. It was more of a 75-25 split where Khalil Herbert was spelling him here and there, but Montgomery was getting the passing down work, and he was getting a lot of volume when he was on the field. And it's kind of tough to read too much in a last week's game considering they were playing underwater. But I'm going David Montgomery here. How are you guys feeling?
I think I agree. They're playing Packers. Yeah, they're gonna need yeah. It's close. I think I'd go Monty as well.
Yeah.
One thing we should point out: Monty had like no goal line work. It was all Khalil Herbert. So
He did get nice touches. Herbert still was involved in a couple of those nice touches. So.
That's actually kind of difficult. I think if it was me, I'd go David Montgomery, but reluctantly. I'll say 3-way stamp of approval, but I'm not confident. I'm sorry.
I'll say that these guys probably, David Montgomery is going to have the slightly higher floor because we know what his expected workload is.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking at the ceiling, is Jeff Wilson Jr.'s ceiling that much higher than David Montgomery's? I mean, they really probably have pretty similar ceilings. So I think the difference for me here is the floor that you're getting with David Montgomery, getting a little more certainty. And I don't think that you're giving up a ton of ceiling by starting David Montgomery over Jeff Wilson, but that's a pretty close one. Next question also comes in from YouTube. Need a flex in half PPR. Darrell Henderson, Julio Jones, Jeff Wilson Jr., or Elijah Moore.
Ooh.
That's a tough one. This is the first one that's really kind of twisted my brain up. That's a tough one here. Victoria, who are you thinking?
Goodness. I think Henderson because, I'm a little hesitant about Henderson's start this week. I've got him slotted in where I have him for my RB2 spot. But I just got to go back to knowing that Sean McVay's not really a committee guy. We saw that Akers had a couple mistakes, and that was it. And Henderson took off the rest of the game. I got to believe in the fact that he could get a 20-touch game there. So I think I'm going with Henderson for that safer floor. Elijah Moore's my boy, and he had his touchdown called back last week from offensive pass interference, which stunk. I think he'll see better weeks, but I think I would go with Henderson this week, half PPR.
I'll throw out a hot take here. I think until we see Cam Akers getting substantial work in this offense, we should be valuing Darrell Henderson as a back-end RB1, the same as he was last year. He was getting a huge workload on a good offense, and right now, I mean, I don't know if he's in the doghouse or if he's just bad at football or if he hasn't recovered from his Achilles. I don't know what it is, but you can't trust Cam Akers at all right now, so I think you got to kind of pencil Darrell Henderson in for an RB1 workload.
I think it's actually, for me, it's a little bit tough between Henderson and Julio with Godwin out. I think Julio is going to be somebody that people are going to want to start in fantasy. We saw him already get used a lot last week. So, but I think he looked good. He looked good. He looked good. So I would say
he was on the injury report today, though.
I think I'm going Henderson, but it's close to me before with Julio and Henderson. But I'll go Henderson.
Next question comes in from Thunder Dave, another nickname that I might take for myself. Have PPR, need a flex. Darnell Mooney, James Robinson, Elijah Moore, or Jeff Wilson.
We got a lot of Jeff Wilson and Elijah Moore together questions.
Yeah.
Not Mooney.
This is
I think I'm going Jeff Wilson here. I think this is one where I'm going Jeff Wilson.
Give me J-Rob.
Really?
Why not Jay? Did you see what he did last week?
Yeah, I don't know.
11 touches. I mean, he scored twice, which was nice. But I mean,
Jeff Wilson's gonna have 11 touches probably too.
Yeah, I'm still going Jeff Wilson over J-Rob, especially because of the matchup against Seattle. I think they could run a decent amount with J-Rob. I mean, we gotta realize too, Travis Etienne was overthrown on a. He had his defender beat and got overthrown in the end zone. And then he also had that what would have been a walk-in touchdown, and he just turned his head to look before he caught the ball and had that tough drop. I mean, we could just as easily be sitting here, burning Twitter down with victory lap saying, did you see the 2-touchdown game from Travis Etienne? And I mean, it was kind of fluky the way that it fell into J-Rob's lap. And really when it came down to it, Travis Etienne had more touches inside the red zone. He got the hurry-up snaps. He got the passing down snaps. So I think that the high-value touches are still going to go Travis Etienne's way. I like James Robinson. I moved him up in my rankings because I saw him healthy, but I still think that Etienne is the back that you want to start in Jacksonville.
I mean, that's fair. I think for this question, though, I said J-Rob. I'm going to stick with J-Rob.
All right. Victoria, who are you starting out of this bunch? I think we're all off Mooney. I think that's the...
not Mooney. Not Mooney.
I feel like I'm going half. I think Jeff. My name is Jeff. I think I'm going Jeff.
All right. That's a tough one, though. Thunder Dave, best of luck. Hope you make the right decision here. Albert is asking us, more worried about Devonta Smith or Hunter Renfrow? I am absolutely more worried about Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams came in there and took 50% of the receiving work. He had a 49% target share. Are you
Oh,
kidding?
it was
Nobody
so
else is
hot.
great.
It
I'm
was
worried
so
about
hot.
Hunter Renfrow. I'm worried about
Calm
Darren
down,
Waller. I'm
Vic.
worried about Josh Jacobs, Brandon Bolden. I'm worried about any pass
Oh,
catcher
yeah.
in Las Vegas that
Brandon
isn't named
Bolden.
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Hunter Renfrow. Look, you could get him late in drafts. I thought I was getting a good wide receiver 4, but yeah, it's looking kind of rough there. He's somebody that's gonna have to ride your bench.
His ADP made 0 sense the entire offseason. 0 sense. You know Devontae Adams is a target hog. You know Darren Waller's still there. Come on, and he was going way
He's
too
such a good
high.
route runner.
He was a wide receiver 1 last year.
He's incredible.
So-
Yes, because nobody else was there, my man. And I love Hunter Renfrow. I've always said on the show, one of the most underrated route runners in the freaking
He's
league.
amazing.
That's
He's
not. We're
A
talking
very good
fantasy.
football player.
We're talking fantasy.
He's a very good football player. Yeah,
Yes, he
but for
is.
fantasy, I don't think we're going to be seeing much out of Renfrow this year. Next question comes in from Juan Ramirez saying, full PPR, should I drop Khalil Herbert for Traylon Burks?
That's an interesting one since we are Khalil Herbert
I would.
troopers on the show, but
I would
Burks
do it.
looked good. Burks did
Yeah.
look good.
Yeah, I'm
You
doing
did?
it.
I mean, for me, though, I'll just, game theory real quickly, talking a little bit. I don't roster one more wide receiver than I have to. My bench in every single redraft league, if I got 7 bench spots, I got 7 backup running backs. So just,
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I don't know if Traylon Burks is going to elevate himself that much higher than a replacement level guy. Why go out and get Traylon Burks when you could probably get Chris Olave off the waiver wire next week, or you can go pick
Right.
up Josh Palmer right now, or you can get Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't know if there's a huge differentiator there. I'd still stash Khalil Herbert just for the contingent value. If something does happen to David Montgomery, you got yourself a guy who's getting an RB1 workload. So that's why I'd keep Khalil Herbert here. Not because I don't think that Traylon Burks could score more points over the rest of the season, but just for the pure upside, I'd prefer to stash Herbert.
That's fair.
I like those points. They are fair because you can always grab a functional wide receiver that you can slot into your lineup, usually off of that waiver wire, depending on your league size. So yeah.
Yeah. That's why this weekend, get Jordan Mason, get Jeff Wilson Jr., get those guys. Don't go splurge on Curtis Samuel, because there's going to be a lot of Curtis Samuels that are going to pop up over the waiver wire in the next few weeks. Next question comes from Zayra. He says, question for later. How do you guys feel about Robert Tonyan? In week 1, he played 36% of the snaps and received 5 targets. He was targeted on 28% of his routes. Elite rate for a tight end. It certainly is. And I think the only reason he wasn't in for more snaps is because it was his first game back in almost a year coming off of that ACL injury. Tonyan is a guy, I don't know if I ever really feel comfortable plugging him in as my tight end, but I liked him for best ball because I think that he probably finishes the season with somewhere between 6 and 10 touchdowns, and every one of those counts as a little mini spike week in best ball. But I don't know if I'd really feel comfortable plugging him into a lineup anytime soon. What about you guys?
I say that I like him as like if I had a bye week, I would absolutely love Tonyan. And I also like him because clearly Aaron Rodgers hates all of his wide receivers. So I think based off of that alone, I think you can start him because, God, what they did week 1 was an absolute travesty. And they should get better, but I feel like we've always talked about it, right? Aaron Rodgers, he trusts his receivers. He wants to throw to guys that he trusts. And the only people he trusts on the team, I think, are Randall Cobb and Robert Tonyan, right? You got, Sammy Watkins, Christian Watson, like they were terrible. And Romeo
Troy,
Doubs
are you just going to leave out my boy Allen Lazard like that? Are we serious right now?
I'm talking about what happened.
Week. He's back.
Talking about week 1.
I'm talking about week 1 here. All right. I was going over my week 1 thing. Yes, Allen Lazard, when he comes back, he's going to be fine. I'm talking about the players who played week 1. Those are the guys he trusted. Yes, Allen Lazard is going to be the wide receiver 1 when he comes back because he has no choice but to be the wide receiver 1. But I'll play Robert Tonyan if I don't have any other options, I guess.
Robert Tonyan or Will Disley?
Oh, Robert,
getting
deep. Yeah.
Next question. This is a good one. Jahan Dotson coming off a 2-touchdown game, or Christian Watson coming off a 75-yard drop touchdown. Yeah, definitely going Dotson here.
Your name's Antonio Gibson too? That's cute. Thanks for writing in, Antonio.
He outperformed Terry McLaurin in almost every single metric. I mean, I think that I'm not even kidding here with how well Curtis Samuel looked and with what Jahan Dotson did. We might be looking at Terry McLaurin as the wide receiver 3 on this team. I mean, these young guys were both looking really, really good.
Hey, now, don't overreact.
They're gonna want
I mean,
They probably want to trade Terry.
To be fair, I've been fading Terry McLaurin for years now, so
forever,
I'm gonna
same.
relish in this as much as I can. I
hear
mean, Jahan Dotson, he just looked really good. I mean,
I'm the Jahan Dotson guy, so I've been on that bandwagon.
So we're all Dotson over Watson here.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. We talked about this real briefly as kind of a hypothetical. Travis Etienne or Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm going Travis Etienne here. What about you guys?
I'm going Jeff Wilson.
I'm also going Jeff.
Right.
Oh, I hate saying that though. I don't know if
too.
this is PPR and all that. So.
If it's full PPR, then
full PPR, I'm going Travis.
Then Etienne.
Yeah. If it's half, then I like Wilson.
Man, we better hope Jeff Wilson smashes because we are recommending Jeff Wilson to a lot of viewers on today's show.
Listen, there's a lot of people who spend a lot of fab on Jeff Wilson because not just us, it's their fab, but also wants the Jeff Wilson to do well.
And that's the thing. Yeah, if you just spend 30, 40, 50% of your fab, you got to start the guy. Why did you pick him up if you're not going to start him? So have some fun. Fantasy football is fun. Go plug in your new shiny toy. Next question comes in from Connor saying, what do I do with Allen Robinson? Should I bench him for Jarvis? I think that's a little bit of an overreaction. Jarvis got the targets and he got the yards and all that, but I think that we see Michael Thomas continue to just solidify himself as the wide receiver one. Still got Chris Olave warming up too. I don't know if Jarvis is going to be getting 11 targets every single week.
They do play the Bucs, so revenge game for Winston, honey baby. You never know. What if they're just tossing on each other every single way? They got to keep up.
I can't help but think that they're going to have to force feed Allen Robinson after his showing last week, after how much money they gave him with Sean McVay, what he's been saying, and with the reviews that we got of Allen Robinson out of camp that he was looking good. I feel like that is going to be a priority for the Rams this week is we need to get right game from Allen Robinson. And maybe I'm just projecting because I had been hyping up Allen Robinson all offseason. If he sucks again this week and does absolutely nothing in week 2, I'll eat my crow. But I still think that Allen Robinson is going to be just fine.
He can't be worse than last week. He can't be worse than last week.
We say that.
I remember negative points. You're gonna get negative points. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll fumble and then just leave the game or something. I don't know. Knock on wood. Please don't do that. But that's the only way he's gonna be worse.
We're all counting on you, A-Rob.
I knocked on wood.
Next question comes from Clap Nuts saying, do you think Cordell Patterson and DK Metcalf could get me Austin Eckler?
I love your name, by the way.
No, I don't. I think.
Are we buying Austin Eckler at that price even? I mean, do you even want Austin Eckler there? Josh McCown's a decent amount of touches.
You gotta stop hating. I saw your tweet. Everybody saw your tweet. You traded Eckler for Saquon Barkley. We know you're down on Eckler this year, but don't get cute. Eckler's Eckler. I know you had 11 points last week. He's gonna pop the rest of the season. Come on.
If I had Eckler and I saw this, I would reject it.
Right. I agree. I don't think this is enough, but it depends. I don't know the person. What if they love Cordell Patterson? Who knows? Maybe they have a poster of him on their wall. You don't know. Try.
Thinking about it, yeah, I'm keeping Eckler here. I don't know if that would be enough. You'd probably have to tack a little bit more on, unless somebody is like, a huge Seattle fan and has a DK Metcalf poster hanging up next to their bed. That's probably the only way that this is going through. I think you need to add a little bit more than Cordell Patterson. A lot of people, because you got to remember, Damian Williams actually came out last week. He looked like he was going to be the lead back, and then he tweaked his ankle early. And that's why Cordell Patterson got all that work. So I think Cordell Patterson might be a little bit of fool's gold here. We also have Tyler Algier, who probably isn't going to be a scratch this week. So Tyler Algier coming back, Damian Williams may be healthy. This could be the peak for Cordell Patterson this season. Next question comes from Louis Digital saying, we already did this one. Yeah, we already did this one. Next question, full PPR, Allen Robinson or Mike Williams? I'm going Mike Williams.
Mike all day.
All right. Adam Weber saying, should I drop James Cook for Jordan Mason? Yeah, I'm done with James Cook.
Drop him.
Another question from Zayra saying, question for later, expectations for Isaiah Pacheco. Should CEH go down?
Ooh,
and I think Pacheco is at this point.
Fantastic bench stash.
Yeah. He got some garbage time last week and was able to punch in a touchdown. And, everyone got to beat their chest and tell you I told you Isaiah Pacheco was the real deal because he got a fourth quarter touchdown in a blowout. But really, I think, Isaiah Pacheco, what he is going to be a very high-end handcuff. So I think what you do is you stash him and you don't hope, but you hope that he finds himself in a position to get more touches. Antonio Gibson, should I bench Antonio Gibson or should I start Antonio Gibson or James Robinson? I'm going Gibby
Antonio. Antonio.
Yeah. Gotta love that. Career high 8 targets right out the jump, week 1. I mean, y'all saw that catch, right? Like him just coming out of the
That was nice.
backfield, like just
That
toe
was
tapping
nice.
on the sidelines. It's like, where has that been? We have been waiting for
For
years to see
years.
somebody utilize this man as a pass catcher. Finally saw it, and it was beautiful.
That's
PFF's
why
highest graded running back as a pass catcher in week 1, Antonio Gibson.
you want to say that one more time. Just kidding. No, he just needed Riverboat Ron to relegate him to catch kickoffs, and that's the little spark he needed. Let's go.
And we see this all the time, and we saw it last year with Brandon Ayuk. Him getting thrown in the doghouse. People said, Brandon Ayuk's dead. That's the end of his career. And no, that's just the motivation he needed to really step it up. And maybe this is what Cam Akers needs. I mean, maybe Cam Akers is getting relegated to the bench. Maybe he comes out next week and plays with a little fire under him. Coaches do things like this, and I think that could have been what that offseason was with Antonio Gibson getting relegated to special teams. It could have just been a little motivating factor for him, and it seemed to work because he looked great in week 1. Next question comes from Mathis Boucher saying DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk this week. DK Metcalf is playing against the San Francisco they're playing against each other.
DK. He'll bounce back. DK for sure.
He got a lot of catches, not a lot of yards.
Not a good A-dot. Yeah.
I'm going DK as well. Louis Digital again saying Travis Etienne or Jeff Wilson Jr. We answered this question. We are all going with, I'm going with Etienne, and you guys are both going Jeff Wilson Jr., right? Yeah. Is that how we decided?
Yeah.
All right. Last question before we sign off. Dominic D'Angelo, Justin Jefferson, and Gibson for Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift. What a monster
Justin
trade.
Jefferson.
This is craziness.
If it has Justin Jefferson in it, I gotta go Justin Jefferson.
Never trade away Justin. I don't know if you have JJ, but never trade that man.
You gotta keep JJ.
No.
If you got Justin Jefferson, if you got Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, I don't know if there's a haul you can get that is big enough. Like if you're trading away Justin Jefferson and you're not getting Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp in return with somebody else, yeah, you're definitely keeping Justin Jefferson.
Oof.
Whew. We did it, guys. I think we got through all the chat questions. Before we sign off here.
Wait, there's one more.
Time. All right. There it is. Swagman himself. Gimme. Well, guys, before we sign off, one more time, Troy, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
You guys find me at T King Mode pretty much on all social media platforms. Twitter's my whole base. I appreciate y'all.
Victoria?
You can find me at FFB_Victoria, Twitter and Instagram. Send us your start sits, DMs. Let us help you win your week. And be sure to tune in next week, too. This show is so much fun. The chat was popping off. Man, we have a good time here.
We do. This is always a fun show. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. That's Kluge. But most importantly, make sure that you have subscribed. YouTube.com/footballguys. This show comes out, the podcast version, a few hours after we record. If you want to see it live, YouTube.com/footballguys is the place to find that. Beat all your friends to the podcast version. Watch it live. Ask your questions in the chat, and we will get them to you in real time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.